Hi, new player to the Dark Souls series here, and I'm here to talk about everything Dark Souls. And I mean everything. You know, theories and stuff. Okay, so recently I've seen a couple of comments observing my massive drip. So being informed of this, I've decided to hold a poll on whether or not I look stupid, and luckily only 1/5 of my audience said yes. The primary issue being the helmet not matching the rest of my model body, which has the black Orlando Knight armor instead of the Artorias chest piece. But due to Artorias' armor having thick proportions, it makes it unwearable. Does this armor make me look fat? Anyways, let's take a closer look at Artorias' actual in-game model. Artorias, take off your clothes. Oh, would you look at that? It's the knight armor. Oh my god, who could have guessed? It's obviously the same armor. Listen, if I could have a sick cloak to match the blue on the helmet, I would, but I can't. You cannot change colors of armor and aren't allowed accessories. I'm held back by the technology of my time. Void Boy, did you hear that? They think our armor is stupid and doesn't look good. Dick 'em, boy.
Get 'em.
Who is the best Souls wife? The Firekeeper, Gwendolyn, the Demon Souls lady whose name I don't know. Actually, it's Ornstein. Ornstein is everything you would want in a powerful wife. Ruthless, freaky, and slightly psychotic. The perfect soup. Not convinced? I got receipts. Let's look at their raw in-game model. This is the raw DS3 model, and look, the dump truck is literally clipping the skirt. I did not do this. Ornstein is canonically mega thick. I mean, just look at those massive protrusions. The aggressively curvy hourglass figure, the dragon-slaying thighs. How can you not believe in this? Did you know that Ornstein's spear has handles for Ornstein to grip? Huh, I wonder what else Ornstein can grip. Ornstein even has multiple versions for everyone. Golden GF, Goth GF, a furry bird thing GF, and it's all perfect. Look at this attack and don't tell me they didn't know what they were doing. Look, even the devs agree with me on this. There is one thing that has been on my mind since the beginning. Why? Why do I do what I do? What is my motivation to keep going? The very reason my heart beats. The very flame that burns my soul. What binds me to this very cosmic stardust that we call a universe? The very reason I log on to FromSoft games despite my lack of enjoyment. What wills me to keep going forward no matter the cost? To completely forsake fun and happiness for these games? What is my reason for this series? Why I try so hard to do what I do? I think I finally found the answer that I've been looking for. For my very motivation, my unbreakable will, the very breath of life itself. My very reason to exist. The thick baddies. First off, we have the thickest onion of all, Siegward. Yes, Seaweed of Katarina, my personal favorite onion-shaped knight. He is like the Solaire of Dark Souls 3, and he has a really nice questline to go along with it, and it has a big ending payoff moment at the end. It was probably the most anime moment I've had so far, and I was really just a spectator the entire time. I must protect Siegward at all costs. Siegward, I bestow this honor to you, my friend.
I've a grave promise to keep, and a duty to fulfill. Yom, old friend, I, Siegward of the Knights of Katarina, have come to uphold my promise. Witness the fury of a Knight of Katarina!
Siegward, let's go! That was sick! Yes, good times, good times. I will say though, despite its praise, I think the questline's a little bit convoluted and easy to miss. Take this quest step for example. This well right here, a very unassuming tiny well that a human can barely fit down. The player at this point must ignore this well, go through all of the Cathedral of the Boring, open the giant door across Rosaria's chamber, reload the area via loading screen, and go back to this chapel. And at this point, you need to get really close to the well, otherwise the dialogue won't pop up for the player and you'll miss this quest. And this is just one step. There has to be a better way to do this, right? I'm not crazy. Right? Like, I always wondered how people figured this one out. They look at this tiny bucket-shaped well and go, wait, the vibes of this well are completely off. But why? Well, this well is grayish, and you know what else is grayish? The massive onion-shaped man. How did I make this connection? By using my sheer genius to look it up online. But he wouldn't be able to fit down there. Unless he lost his armor. But how? A question for the ages. Oh wait, I know. By encountering an NPC from another game in the series that took place hundreds of thousands of years ago, yet is somehow still alive and has aged less than Andre the Blacksmith, Patches has somehow tricked him into stripping bare, and then somehow had the strength and cunning to shove his thick bum down this tiny well. And now, I must open an unrelated door for him to regain his ability to speak. Yes. This is the only reasonable explanation for this tiny well. Okay, be honest. Did you get this questline on your first playthrough without a guide? Apparently, only one of my viewers was powerful enough to get this first try. Which, hey, good for you. Good for you, Cranian. Good for you. Anyways, Siegward's definitely up there with Solaire, but in my heart, Solar Flare will always be number one. Yes, my wife, plural. You there, have you by chance seen around here a voluptuous golden dragon slayer within an aggressive hourglass figure? Because I would love to know. If you were watching my channel, you'd see that I had just recently fought Nameless King, in which afterwards I found Ornstein's armor and spear, but no Ornstein. At first I was puzzled, but after looking around Arch Dragon Peak and Dark Souls 3 as a whole, I've noticed there's a lot of symbolism of dragons and transforming into dragons. Not to mention, earlier we saw the tree hollows turning into wyverns at the High Wall of Lothric, which you later fight some on top of Lothric Castle. Hang on, I'm starting to notice a common theme here. Before I reached 𝑻𝑨𝑳𝑲, I remember hearing about people being experimented on and transforming into beast, which we later found out was done under Pontiff Sulyvhan. You can see the results of this tragedy in 𝑻𝑨𝑳𝑲 dungeon, and later on in my adventure, I encountered a creature called Osiris, a half-human, half-dragon hybrid, which reminded me of those victims of Pontiff deep within 𝑻𝑨𝑲 dungeon. The scaleless pale skin, walking on all fours, and wings. You picking up what I'm putting down? Huh? There is a common theme here of dragons all throughout this series. So many kingdoms, civilizations, and people have all tried and failed to achieve true dragon ascension and possible immortality, except for one, the son of Gwyn, Boreal, the god of war, known for the lion symbol shown on his knights. And one knight in particular stands out, the dragon slayer Ornstein, who served under the son of Gwyn with the appearance of a golden lion. Ornstein was very close with the son, being trained directly under him. He was a loyal soldier through and through, until one day the heir left his kingdom and was erased from history. One presumes that the Dragon Slayer stayed and fought for his kingdom, forgetting his master and his good friend. But this soon was shown to be a lie, fabricated by one desperate tyrant clinging to a long withering kingdom. The Dragon Slayer was outed to be an illusion. See, I didn't kill you that one time. With only the giant Smo defending the kingdom. Remnants and echoes of this Dragon Slayer were seen later in Heidi's Tower of Flame. Yet still, it is not the true Dragon Slayer. The years go by. Time intertwines and becomes distorted as the end of the world nears. And yet, atop of a mountain, disconnected from the world and its troubles, the son of Gwyn emerges, riding a once familiar enemy. And below this arena is the empty armor of the true Dragon Slayer, with no body to be found. Deep within ancient world trees, there existed a dragon that could share their gift with humanity and the gods, despite their ongoing war. When ascended, the hybrid dragons retained a distinct bird-like appearance. With this knowledge, one dragon stands out from the rest, the King of the Storm. The player is shown what the other ancient wyverns look like, but yet this one is unique, completely different from the others, and very close with the king. And what lies under them is the empty armor of his old loyal lion knight. I think I know why you're called the King of the Storm now. To think I was so blind. During their confrontation with the Ashen One, the wyvern meets their fate. And when this happens, the king and dear old friend shows something I've never seen before. Emotion. This old forgotten king who's now going hollow and losing himself is physically shaken to his core, and he hesitates? This king takes the wyvern's power and vows revenge on the knight who ended his friend, but unfortunately to no avail. In this passionless arena, illuminated by miracles, I can see something new. He's shown me, and it's the path that I must take. Be gone! Be gone! Oh. 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 Still don't believe me? To get to Archdragon Peak, the player must perform a specific gesture, a meditating pose. This was learned by the player after meeting a Drakeblood Knight resting eternally in meditation. This pose has been in the series since the very first Dark Souls, at the very source of Dragon Ascension, with the kind dragon who peacefully sat within a tree, meditating. To think that this is where that pose came from, in that it's made its way from the depths of the world to the very peak of it. I now look at this fight differently. It's sad, and more importantly, unnecessary. To think they were up on that mountain for years, away from the world and its problems, only for the problems to come to them. All of this, the comparisons to the obtainable dragon form and the storm wyvern, with the abandoned possessions of the king's old friend laying just under the wyvern's arena, with no body to be found, item descriptions detailing the dragon slayer's history with Nameless King. I think after all this time, we finally found the only one truly capable of being a dragon, and it's the dragon slayer themselves. My top 3 bosses. Okay, so I feel like I haven't talked about the bosses that I thought were close to perfect or ones that I just really liked. So I'm gonna do that now. First off, Dancer. This boss was instantly one of my favorites. A great visual design. The animations of how she moved along with her music really made her unsettling. It very clearly conveyed that you should fear her, and that she's not to be messed with. She had little to no bullcrap, her attacks were very clearly conveyed to the player with little to no visual clutter, and her animations were very consistent with her origin and lore. Remember the spin to win the Pontiff Knights and Pontiff had in Irithyll? She has it too. It was cool seeing that move again, and funnily enough, I fully made that connection to Irithyll when she entered into her second phase and began to dual wield. Oh, and she has 2 blades now. Okay, blocking time. Wow, okay, ma'am. I like you. I appreciate you. I think that you are great, but you should really stop with those attacks. Oh my god, this is like a freaking roller coaster. A great overall boss that I had 0 issues with and that I really liked. The most important thing that I can say is that they nailed the difficulty without any weird gimmicks to severely water down the experience. I'm so glad they didn't add extra enemies, invulnerability phases, required weak spots, or projectile spam. They just had the fight be raw and speak for itself, allowing you to enjoy the fight how you wanted to without forcing a very specific way to play and punishing you for not doing so. Yes, Pontiff Sulyvhan. I'd like to point out something about this boss. Clearly he's very hard, obviously. Unless you parry, then it's one of the easiest bosses in the game. But listen, I love this boss. The presentation, the music, the concept, and that sick pose. But I think he suffers from an unhealthy difficulty curve. The absolute spike in difficulty here is insane. The boss you fight before Pontiff is High Lord Gundyr. I repeat, High Lord Gundyr. And now you fight the original final boss of the game. Oh yeah, that's another thing that I would like to talk about. In concept art and early versions of Dark Souls 3, Pontiff was the main antagonist and one of, if not the final boss of the game. And an even funnier fact, the main Dark Souls 3 menu music was Pontiff's original boss theme, hence why it goes so damn hard, and also why it's so different from the other games. DS2 theme superior, I'm not sorry. Does it now make sense why he's so involved in the lore? In fact, I have another video planned about the true villains of Dark Souls because I just very recently learned something. I'd say Pontiff is right next to the Dancer in terms of rating. Both are equally great, fun, and nail the difficulty in my opinion. Also, I swear this boss was much harder when I fought him. Don't believe me? Lower your equip load to the fastest dodge and run in circles without lock on. Trust me, it is insane how funny this is. Also, nut punch. The goat, the grungy, the Gundyr. I don't know why, but Gundyr reminds me of a wrestler, probably because of his sick-ass CQC skills. But undoubtedly, this is the best boss by far, and it's not even close. No gimmicks, no cheap nonsense, just straight raw combat. And I love the fact that you can parry him. It makes the fight feel much more even, and more importantly, doesn't take away key mechanics from the player for the sake of difficulty. Champion Gundyr is literally a direct upgrade from base Gundyr. And I have absolutely no issue with them reusing Gundyr because they improved the fight and made it better. I've always disliked base Gundyr's second phase. It lowered the fight for me by a lot, which sucked at first because I really liked that first phase. I'm very glad FromSoft realized this and redid and re-expanded upon the first phase of Gundyr. They knew, and I'm so glad that they knew. They brought it back, fixed it, made it harder, but in a healthy way, and removed his old second phase. His new second phase is him literally doing the lock-in lean meme. Dude, you kinda suck at this game. Gundyr, chill, Gundyr. I'm sorry. I took back what I said. I will always love boss fights without unnecessary gimmicks because they are the most honest and pure to me. A direct challenge, no underhandedness, no cheap tricks, no running, just a direct challenge to you, the player. A true test. Can you stand tall with me? Are you worthy? There's one thing that I want to talk about in these games. that I don't really see being praised or even talked about, and that's the amazing sound design that this series has. Every item, action, and movement has an appropriate and weighty sound that is satisfying and makes sense. Parry, riposte, backstab, heavy attacks, miracles, impacts, ambience, all nail their specific role. I just also wanted to point out that if you riposte Pontiff, a metal pipe falling noise plays during his falling animation. Don't believe me? Give it a listen. It's truly wonderful how seamless and easily these sounds all blend together to make a very specific type of ambience. It's wonderful. Good job, sound designers. Good job. Soul's music. Here's a couple of noteworthy tracks that I really liked. Gwyn's theme. Obviously, this is the first track that actually stands out being both unique in the approach of the track, but also being unique in its tone. This track is such a breath of fresh air after all the themes that eventually mesh together and become samey after a while. I'm so glad they didn't do a generic "You Will Die Now" choir that I've grown so damn tired of. 10 out of 10 for the originality, completely changing the tone while still working, and great instrumental storytelling, because apparently this track was done using only white keys of the piano to represent Gwyn's opposition to the dark. Wow, the dark really lives rent-free in his head. Alonne's theme is another standout theme, much more lively, energetic, and grandiose. Sure, it has that choir that I've mentioned in earlier tracks, but for some reason it just hits harder. It's, like I said, more grandiose. The stakes are higher. The adrenaline is pumping. I think it truly nails and perfected that "You Will Die Now" theme, enough to where it separates itself from the previous tracks. I'd say solid 9 out of 10. I really like. Also, Alonne reminds me of Artorias. Is that just me? Yes. The Majula theme. Let's be honest, you knew this was coming. A melancholic, dreamlike theme with a hint of sadness behind it. I will always like these types of themes compared to the rest of FromSoft's catalog. It just hits different after the generic FromSoft music you always hear, and it's one of the very few reasons I really liked Dark Souls 2 aesthetic. Yes, Gundyr's theme. The perfect strings that escalate the tension and stakes, creating a dramatic tension in the air. And I don't even mind the choir, because they let the strings take front and center. And when the choir does take the lead, it's slower and more patient, although it is the weakest part of the song for me, but hey, it makes great monologue music. I'd say solid 9 out of 10. Very close to 10 out of 10, but just not quite there. Okay, this next theme, themes, I actually really like, and that's the Maiden Astraea theme. I really like this theme. It's calming yet tragic, and I swear, the strings that are being played are my heartstrings. Just a wonderfully sad piece of music that I put towards the top of my list. Now, there's one thing I like to talk about, and it's the weird hatred this song gets, specifically the remake version. People saying that it's unlistenable, that it's so bad, that it completely misses the tone, that it's an embarrassment. It's like this blows my mind, because I personally think it still works, and in my opinion, it even passes the original in certain segments. It hits harder, and it really sets in the weight of what you must do. Speaking of this song, there's a really good remix by Hellkite Drake. I highly implore you to give it a listen. It's my favorite Souls remix. You might recognize it when I had used it during my Leonard fights. Is it just me, or is Artorias' theme underwhelming? Like, I'm pretty sure I remember thinking I clicked on the wrong OST when listening to it because I thought to myself, no way that's it. Turns out, yeah, it is. I feel like this boss deserved much more. Or at least it would have been better to save him for a later game with a more healthy difficulty curve, because that's another thing. I feel like the DLC was a completely different experience than the base game, and that's why it was hard. Because they didn't build it up or communicate it at all. Not because of the movesets or the puzzles or anything involving regular combat, it's the massive uncommunicated change of pace with a lack of build-up or time to organically involve the player. That's what makes it hard, and that's the only challenge. Because once you get used to it, the DLC is a cakewalk, and I hope that this Dark Souls 3 DLC is much better in that regard. Anyways, earlier I mentioned Hellkite Drake and that they made a super cool theme remix of Maiden Astraea's theme. Well, guess what? They did it again. They made a super cool theme that I also wanted to share with you guys, and I feel like this song goes so much harder. It's so hard, and more importantly, it's mega anime, which if you're not new to the channel, you know I like. Here, give it a listen. Alright, well that was my first ever commentary video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one, because I really did. And wow, I have to say, this is so much more fun than doing those first time gameplay videos. Sure, it's not as magical, but in my opinion, I love doing this a lot more. And I really hope that I get to do more of it, and that you guys enjoy this content so I can keep having a reason to make it. It's very nice to finally have the creative freedom to make whatever I want, and not limiting myself to a specific area, boss, and enemies. I didn't realize how liberating or just how nice this feels. This is the end, but there is one more thing that I need to talk about, and it's very important. Alright, I want to take this time to make a mini announcement for you guys. 2 months ago, I made a community post in which I was discussing stress and lack of time, and that was why I was having to delay my videos for a significant amount of time. And I'm gonna tell you why that happened. It was because I'm planning to move soon to another country for an unannounced amount of time, and I was trying to get everything together with my family to make that move. And more importantly, my biggest concern right now is how I'll be able to make my videos. Obviously, you're aware, my PC ain't exactly easy to move, and I need a decent rig to make the content that I make. So I just wanted to tell you guys that I may be experiencing delays with my content, since I'm understanding that I'll be constantly on the move. It's stressful, and honestly, I'm scared. I really like this YouTube thing, and I'm fearful that this will impede that, but I'm hopeful nonetheless. And I really need to say this. Thank you for those who have stuck with me for a prolonged period of time. I do recognize your names in the comments, and I'm very grateful that you come back when you don't have to. Thanks again, and I hope to see you very soon. Have a good day, night, afternoon, everyone. Please take care of yourselves. Goodbye.